Las Vegas, November 1973. The High Roller Lounge at Caesar's Palace was empty except for two men. One was Dean Martin, 56 years old, the biggest star in Las Vegas, a man who could fill any showroom in the city. The other was Robert Duchamp, 48 years old, oil money from Texas, net worth $200 million. Problem: he was a gambling addict. Between them sat a backgammon board. Dean loved backgammon, not for money, for the game itself, the strategy, the dice, the quiet concentration. He'd learned it in the 1950s, played it backstage between shows, on planes, in hotel rooms. It relaxed him, gave his mind something to focus on besides work and performance and the constant pressure of being Dean Martin. He was good at it, not professional level, but good enough that most people couldn't beat him. Robert Duchamp was also good at backgammon, but more importantly, Robert was addicted to gambling. Not just backgammon, everything: cards, dice, sports, horse racing, stocks, anything that involved risk and money. His wife had left him 2 years ago, took the kids, said she couldn't watch him destroy himself anymore. His business partners were getting nervous. He'd lost $15 million in the past year, made terrible decisions because he was always thinking about the next bet. His friends had tried interventions, therapy. Nothing worked. Robert didn't think he had a problem. He thought he had a hobby, a very expensive hobby. Dean and Robert had met 3 days earlier at a charity event, started talking about backgammon. Robert challenged Dean to a game. Just for fun, Dean had said. No money. They'd played. Dean won. Robert wanted a rematch. They'd played again the next night. Robert won. Then Dean won. Then Robert. Back and forth. Now it was the third night, and Robert wanted to raise the stakes. They were sitting in the private lounge. 11 p.m. Dean's show had ended an hour ago. Robert set down his drink, looked at Dean. Let's make this interesting. Dean moved a piece on the board. It's already interesting. Good game. I mean really interesting. Dean looked up. How interesting? $1 million. Dean stopped, set down his dice. You want to bet $1 million on a backgammon game? Yes? Robert, that's insane. Why? I can afford it, so can you. That's not the point. It's backgammon. It's supposed to be relaxing. Robert leaned forward. His eyes were intense, hungry. Nothing's relaxing when there's no stakes. I need stakes to feel alive. Dean studied him, recognized something in Robert's voice, something desperate. When did you last play without betting money? Robert thought about it. I don't know. Years maybe. That's a problem. That's my business. It becomes my business when you want to bet $1 million with me. Robert smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew they had a problem, but didn't care. I'm not asking you to save me, Dean. I'm asking you to play backgammon. Dean shook his head. No. Why not? Because it's not about the game anymore. It's about the addiction. And I don't want to be part of that. Robert's face hardened. Fine. Then let's make it more interesting. How? I'll add a condition. If you win, you get the $1 million. If I win, you do something for me. What? You cancel your show next Saturday, and instead you perform at my house, private show, just for me and my guests. Dean's jaw tightened. You want to own me for a night. I want to own something that money can't buy. I'm not for sale. Everyone's for sale, Dean. It's just a matter of finding the right price. Not me. Robert stood up, paced. His hands were shaking slightly. He needed this, needed the risk, the adrenaline, the possibility of winning something impossible. One night, that's all I'm asking. You sing 6 songs. Take some pictures with my guests. Done in 2 hours. And if I say no, then you're admitting you're afraid to lose. Dean looked at Robert, saw what was really happening here. This wasn't about backgammon. This wasn't even about winning. This was about control. About Robert feeling like he had power over something, over someone. Because everything else in Robert's life was out of control. His marriage, his business, his addiction. But if he could make Dean Martin perform at his house, if he could own Dean Martin for one night, then maybe he'd feel in control again. Dean understood this, recognized it, and he made a decision. Robert, I'm going to make you a different offer. Robert sat down. What offer? I'll bet you $1 million. But not on backgammon. Then on what? Dean leaned forward. His voice was calm, quiet, but there was steel underneath. I bet you can't stop gambling for 1 year. Robert blinked. What? 1 year. No gambling, no casinos, no cards, no dice, no sports betting, no stock market gambling, nothing. That's not a bet. That's impossible. Why? You just said you don't have a problem. I don't. But a year? If you don't have a problem, it should be easy. Robert was sweating now. Dean, that's not how this works. Sure it is. I'm offering you a bet. $1 million. You win if you can go 1 year without gambling. You lose if you can't. But what do I have to put up? Nothing. If you lose, you don't owe me anything. But if you win, I pay you $1 million. Robert stared at him. Why would you do that? Because I think you can't. I think you're so addicted that you couldn't go 1 month without gambling, much less 1 year. I think you'll lose this bet in 2 weeks. Robert's face reddened. Pride, anger, shame, all mixed together. You're saying I'm an addict. I'm saying you have a problem, and problems can be fixed. But only if you admit they exist. I don't need your help. This isn't help. This is a bet. You love bets, right? So here's one. Prove me wrong. Go 1 year, win $1 million. Robert stood up again, paced more. His mind was racing. $1 million, easy money. All he had to do was not gamble for a year. But could he do it? The thought terrified him. What would he do instead? What would fill that void? There has to be conditions, Robert said finally. What conditions? I need to be able to do something with my time. I agree. That's why part of the bet is you have to see a therapist, once a week, for the whole year. A therapist? Yes? You want me to go to therapy? I want you to understand why you gamble. I want you to figure out what you're running from, because people don't gamble like you do unless they're running from something. Robert sat down. He looked at his hands. They were still shaking. What if I can't do it? Then you can't do it. But at least you'll know, and maybe that knowledge will help you. This is insane. More insane than betting $1 million on backgammon? Robert was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. My father was a gambler, lost everything. When I was 12, he killed himself. Left a note saying he couldn't face his debts. Dean didn't say anything, just listened. I swore I'd never be like him. I made money, built a business, thought I was different, but I'm not, am I? I'm exactly like him. You're not dead. That makes you different. Yet. Robert, look at me. Robert looked up. His eyes were wet. You can beat this, but you have to want to, and you have to get help. This bet? It's not really about the money. It's about giving you a reason, a goal, something concrete to aim for. What if I fail? Then you fail, and we try something else. But Robert, if you don't try something, you're going to end up like your father, and I don't think you want that. Robert wiped his eyes, took a deep breath. 1 year? 1 year. And you'll really pay me $1 million if I make it? I'll really pay you $1 million. Why? Dean smiled, small smile, sad smile. Because I've lost people to addiction, not gambling, other things, and I couldn't help them because they didn't want help. But you? I think you want help. You just don't know how to ask for it. So I'm asking for you. Robert was crying now. Not loud, just tears running down his face. This is the stupidest bet I've ever made. Maybe, but it might be the most important one. Robert reached across the table, shook Dean's hand. Deal. The next morning, Robert checked himself into a treatment facility. 30 days, inpatient. His business partners were shocked. His friends were confused. But Robert told them, I made a bet with Dean Martin, and I'm going to win. Dean didn't tell anyone about the bet. Not his manager, not his friends. Nobody. This was between him and Robert. Every month, Dean would call the facility, check on Robert's progress, not to pressure him, just to remind him someone cared. How you doing? It's hard, Dean, really hard. I know, but you're doing it. There are days I want to walk out, go to a casino, just one hand of blackjack, just one. But you don't. But I don't. That's strength, Robert, real strength. 6 months in, Robert called Dean. I need to tell you something. What? I figured out why I gamble. Why? Because when I'm gambling, I don't have to think about anything else. My father, my failed marriage, my kids who won't talk to me, my business that's falling apart. When I'm betting, all that goes away. It's just me and the cards, or the dice, or the board. And for those few minutes, I'm not a failure. I'm just a player." Dean was quiet for a moment. "But you're not a failure, Robert. You're a man who's trying to get better. That's not failure. That's courage." "I don't feel courageous." "Courage never feels like courage. It feels like being terrified and doing it anyway." "Is that what you feel when you perform?" "Sometimes. When the show isn't going well. When the audience is cold. When I'm tired and don't want to be there. But I do it anyway. Because that's the job. Your job right now is getting better. And you're doing it." "Thanks, Dean." "Thank you for trying." 1 year later, November 1974, Robert walked into Caesar's palace. He looked different, healthier. His eyes were clear. His hands didn't shake. He found Dean in the same high roller lounge. Dean stood up, shook his hand. "You made it." "I made it." "How do you feel?" "Terrified, proud, grateful, all of it." Dean pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check, $1 million. Robert stared at it, didn't touch it. "I can't take this." "We had a bet. You won." "No, you won. You saved my life." "I didn't save anything. You did the work." "But you gave me a reason to try." Robert pushed the envelope back. "Use it for something that matters. A charity, a foundation, something that helps people like me." Dean looked at him, smiled. "You sure?" "I'm sure. I don't need money. I needed a life. You gave me that." They sat down. The backgammon board was still there. Robert gestured to it. "Want to play? No stakes. Just for fun." Dean laughed. "Now you're speaking my language." They played. Robert won. "See," Robert said, "I'm better without the pressure." "Everyone is." 2 years later, 1976, Dean got a letter. It was from Robert's daughter, Sarah, 23 years old. "Dear Mr. Martin, I wanted to thank you for what you did for my father. I don't know all the details. He won't tell me everything. But I know you made a bet with him, and I know that bet changed his life. My father and I hadn't spoken in 5 years. He missed my wedding, missed the birth of my son, was too busy gambling to care about his family. But 3 months ago, he called me, said he was sorry, said he'd been in therapy, said he wanted to be a grandfather. I didn't believe him at first. He'd promised to change before. But this time was different. He's been clean for 2 years. He shows up. He's present. He's the father I remember from childhood. My son, your namesake Dean, just turned 1. And my father was there for his first birthday, sober, happy, present. That's because of you. You didn't have to help him. You didn't owe him anything. But you saw someone in pain, and you helped. Thank you. Sarah. Dean read the letter 3 times. Then he put it in his desk drawer, next to other meaningful letters, other moments that mattered. In 1982, 8 years after the bet, Dean was performing at Caesar's Palace. In the audience, sitting in the 3rd row, was Robert Duchamp. With him were his daughter Sarah, her husband, and 2 grandchildren. After the show, Robert came backstage. "Dean, great show." "Robert, you brought the family." "I did. Wanted them to see the man who saved their grandfather." Dean shook his head. "I didn't save anyone." "Yes, you did. You just don't like to admit it." Robert's grandson, now 8 years old, stepped forward. "Are you really Dean Martin?" Dean kneeled down. "I am. What's your name?" "Dean. I'm named after you." Dean looked at Robert. "Really?" Robert nodded. "Sarah insisted. Said if I was going to have a grandson, he should be named after the man who gave me a second chance." Dean hugged the boy. His eyes were wet. "You take care of your grandpa, okay?" "I will." When Robert Duchamp died in 1994, Dean was one of the pallbearers. At the funeral, Sarah read a letter her father had written before his death. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, but I wanted to leave something behind, an explanation, a thank you. In 1973, I was dying, not physically, but spiritually, emotionally. I'd lost everything that mattered, my family, my self-respect, my purpose. I was a gambling addict who'd convinced myself I didn't have a problem. Then I met Dean Martin, and he made me a bet I couldn't refuse. Not because of the money, because of what it represented. He bet on me, when no one else would, when I wouldn't even bet on myself. He said, 'I think you can stop, and I'm putting $1 million on it.' That faith, that belief, that's what saved me. Not the therapy, though that helped, not the treatment, though that was necessary, but the knowledge that someone believed I could be better. Dean gave me that, and I spent the rest of my life trying to deserve it. I've been sober from gambling for 21 years. I've reconciled with my children. I've met my grandchildren. I've lived a life I'm proud of. That's all because one man looked at a broken addict and saw someone worth saving. Thank you, Dean, for everything. After the funeral, Dean stood by Robert's grave. He didn't say anything, just stood there, thinking. A reporter approached, asked him about Robert, about their friendship. Is it true you made a bet with him? That you helped him quit gambling? Dean looked at the reporter. Robert was my friend. That's all that matters. But people say you changed his life. Robert changed his own life. I just gave him a reason to try. What reason? The same reason anyone changes, because they realize they're worth it. That's the story of November 1973, when a millionaire thought he could own Dean Martin for $1 million, when he thought he could bet on a backgammon game and win something priceless, when he thought money could buy anything. Dean Martin showed him he was wrong, not by refusing the bet, but by changing the terms, by making it about something that actually mattered. Not control, not ownership, not pride, but life, redemption, second chances. Robert Duchamp wanted to own Dean Martin. Dean Martin gave him something better. He gave him back his life. That's not a bet. That's grace. That's not money. That's love. That's not winning. That's transformation. And it happened because Dean Martin understood something most people forget. That the most valuable thing you can give someone isn't money or fame or even help. It's belief. Belief that they can be better, that they're worth saving, that their story doesn't have to end in tragedy. Robert Duchamp's father ended his life over gambling debts. Robert Duchamp lived 21 more years. Sober, present, loved. That's the difference one bet made. That's the difference one person believing made. Dean Martin didn't just win a bet that night. He saved a life. And 21 years later, standing at Robert's funeral, surrounded by children and grandchildren who existed because Robert chose recovery, Dean knew. Sometimes the best bet you can make isn't the one you win. It's the one that helps someone else find themselves.